Welcome to the second session in the series of creativity. So far we have seen that creativity is something to do with novelty, value and usual. When we do something creative, what we are doing is we are bringing into life something which did not exist so far. So we are creating new things, new ideas, new creations. Second attribute of creativity, that it must be of some value, it must be important, it must not be casual. And the third thing is that it must be unusual. If something routinely done is done, even if it is of value, even if it is new, we do not call such thing as creative things. When we talk about unusualness, we also should talk about usual things. So it is usual to form patterns and use those patterns. We have given extensive examples of use of patterns and recognition of pattern and use of such recognized patterns. And when we talked about unusualness, we talked in terms of creativity. Creativity is the escape from the routine, escape from something usual, escape from something which you do day in and day out. So when you do something which is unusual, you are doing something creative. So not only you have to recognize pattern, but you have to find new concept or new mapping, new associations for the given patterns. When you interpret the patterns in a totally different manner, then you are creative. This is something which we saw in the last lecture. We also saw about the theoretical and practical needs for creativity. We saw that it is important to be creative, because unless you are creative, you would not be able to explore new dimensions, new areas. We had given the example of Christopher Columbus, who found the new world by taking an unusual path, and he found a totally new territory. So that is the theoretical need for creativity. We also saw what is the practical need for this creativity, and we observed that when we do a research, there are stages in the research, and one of the stage is to find an hypothesis. So when we find hypothesis, we give the hypothesis, we state an hypothesis, we formulate an hypothesis. In that we are being creative. We try to find some new patterns and test whether that pattern is going to be the true one, whether it works or it does not work. Now we move further ahead. We talk about the various misconceptions in creativity. First misconcept is that it cannot be taught. It is something creative people are born. They cannot be created. They cannot be. You cannot teach creativity in classrooms or in any educational setup. This is a misconception. We have seen in our earlier series on the team building that there are certain hypotheses or certain statements which cannot be proven or misproven or disproven. You cannot prove or disprove some of the statements. Suppose you treat this statement that creativity can be taught, and either it can be proven or it cannot be proven. If we assume that it is something that somebody is born creative, then and you cannot teach it, then it will disempower you. This is something which we saw in the series on team building, that some statement, if you believe those statements, it takes away power from you, and if you believe to the contrary, then those statements will give you power. So if you think that creativity can be taught, then you will try to find ways and means to teach creativity, and this will lead you, this will induce you, this will inspire you to find ways and means to teach creativity, and it will empower you, it will give power to you. So this concept or this misconception that creativity cannot be taught should be dealt with, should be done away with, and it should be treated as a misconception. People give examples of to prove or to say that creativity cannot be taught and people are born creative. They give examples of Shakespeare or people with very high values or very high talent, and they said that right from the beginning they had that passion for those creations, they had the passion, they had the talent, and they were born with those talents, and therefore what we say is correct. But there are various levels of creativity. We cannot take only the exceptionally high level of creativity to prove your point. There may be various degrees of creativity. We are not, when we talk about the creativity, we are not talking only about the ultimate level of creativity. We are also talking about usual levels of creativity, medium level of creativity, or low level of creativity. So there may be degrees, just as there is a degrees. Not all the painters are Hussein, or all the painters are Da Vinci. There are street painters, there are painters of national caliber, there are painters of international caliber, and there are painters who will be remembered throughout the history. So just as there are so many levels, the creativity also has degrees or levels. We can teach creativity, and if you do that, what we are trying to say is that everybody is born creative in some way or the other. The degree to which you are creative or born with the talent of creativity may be different, but if you are honed, if the talent, that fire within you is kept alive, is inspired, if you are taught to be creative, probably you will do a much better job with whatever natural skill you are born with. So your natural skill will be enhanced if we try to teach creativity in the classrooms. So if we assume that creativity can be taught, then we can do things which will lead to teaching of creativity in classroom or educational setting. There are certain techniques which are something like a drill, which you can always use in order to find a creative solution. Those techniques we will be calling as lateral thinking techniques, and we will be devoting a lot of time to developing and to use those creative techniques, and we can deliberately teach these techniques in a classroom setting. Another misconception is that creativity comes from rebels. There are two kinds of people. Some people adjust to whatever life gives them. So such people, when they are young, they are kids, they know that what is required in the school, how to please the teacher, how to be in the good books of the teachers, how to do whatever is expected from them, and to have the knack of earning marks, getting good scores, if it is required even to copy or do whatever hooks and by hook or crook, whatever is required by the life, whatever is expected by the society, do according to that. Such people we will call them as conformists. So this is a set of people called conformists who do whatever is required by the society, by the patterns, by the parents, by the elders or the seniors. On the contrary, there is another totally different, diagonally opposite group which we call as rebels. They question everything. They are not satisfied with whatever is offered to them, whatever justification has been given to them, whatever is taught to them. They think differently. They think in an unusual manner. They are rebels. They do not care whether they could get good marks or not. They do not care whether they are in the good books or not. They are always rebellious. They are always criticizing people. They are always criticizing the practices in the societies. Their criticism may be justified or may not be justified. That is a different thing. As we said in our first lecture, that creativity is something to do with being unusual, and we have also given a very specific example that what will happen when you have created something which is unusual, but which is not of value. We identified such things as madness, that mad people are always creative because they do things which is not logically expected since they break the logic, therefore, they are creative to a certain extent. That why we don't call them creative, because they do not create values. There are some painters in the history which have become immortal, that they will be always remembered through the history of the art, and those people were mad to a certain extent, and their madness created some paintings which are of immense value in terms of money. Van Gogh is one of such example. So, he created some creations out of his madness, and because of that madness, the extent to which he could go, the risk which he could take was more than what other people could take. But apart from that, creativity is something to do with doing things in an unusual manner, and these rebellious people definitely do things which is not expected from them. Whatever is expected from them, they do not do it. Therefore, in a sense, they are creative. So, let us assume what will happen if the society gives lot of prize, lot of values, lot of rewards to those ideas, those people who are creative. Suppose you are creative, you are creating new ideas, you are creating new things which is of great value, and since it is of great value, it is creating wealth, and those people who are creative, they become wealthier and wealthier, like those innovators who have found a organization, a company, or some business houses like Goodyear or like Intel. So many companies are there who are always innovative. They always bring new ideas, new product in the market in a very fast manner. They are extremely creative. So, such companies or such business houses keep on generating large amount of wealth. They are always looked up with respect, and their product is always treated with faith and trust. And because of such things, they are market leaders. They do not have much of competition. They are competing against themselves. So, when society rewards by money such business houses and such individuals who are extremely creative, what will happen? In long run, what will happen to those people who are conformists, who are opportunists, who are always looking for being in the good book, to do more things which will give them more and more money by hook or by crook? They will also try to be creative. Then there is a contradiction. Those people who are conformists are trying to become creative, and in being creative, they are sort of taking the role of the rebels. So, a very interesting sociological phenomena can occur when conformists learn the game of the creative. Suppose we teach creativity in classrooms, and if the teaching of the creativity becomes very popular and it becomes very easy for everybody and many people to be creative, then even these conformist people would also try to be creative, and then there will be a sort of a conflict, and those people who are rebels, they will oppose this teaching of creativity, and conformists will learn the game of the being creative. But this is a very interesting sociological phenomena. In my view, being conformist and being rebellious are two steps of the same process of development. In order to develop, you have to be also conformist and you also have to be rebel. When you generate new idea, you are rebellious or you are creative, but only being creative does not lead to the development. You also have to do lot of things which are of routine nature. Edison used to say that innovation is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. That means, suppose he wanted to invent the bulb. He had the idea as to how it is going to work. He knew that when the current flows through elements or through conductors, it becomes hot, and this heat may give light. Now, he wanted to optimize. He knew this concept, he knew this idea, and he knew in his heart that this idea is going to work. But what exactly, which element to take, which material to take, which will make this light more and more strong, that was the challenge. So, only having a great idea does not work. You have to spend lot of efforts on doing very conventional things. So, he kept on replacing the things which we call as the element. He sucked out the air, so that this element or this fiber would not burn, because burning would take place when the oxygen is there. So, if you do not have the oxygen, it will not burn, it will not oxidize. So, he took away the oxygen, but even then it was not glowing. So, he kept on experimenting with thousands of, at least 1000 of the material fiber, and ultimately he used some fiber which gave more and more light. So, it was not just the flick of imagination which created the bulb. Lot of hard work which is of the routine nature went into this creation. So, that is why he said that do not think that we are very brainy people and we are doing only the brainy work. We are hard working people and we are doing hard work 99% of time, only 1% of time we are doing the brainy work. So, in development, creative people are also required, and people who do routine job without much of application of mind, those people will also be required. Then we talked about the hemisphere in our last series of lectures on team building, when we talked about the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. It is the right hemisphere which is responsible for creativity, innovations and things like that. And according to this book by De Bono on serious creativity, people are thinking about left hemisphere and right hemisphere in isolation. It is a sort of creating a caste system of its own, that somebody is left brained, some people is right brained. We want more and more right brained people for this idea, we want more and more people of left brain in this idea. This kind of vocabulary is building up, but it would be misleading to assume that only the right brain is required to do creative jobs. Both the hemisphere are important. When we do creative jobs, even though lot of areas in the right hemisphere in the brain are earmarked with such systems and such jobs and such processes which we call as creative, but not only the right brain, but also the left brain would be required. As I just now said, that we also should be doing hard work, hand work, and also we should be able to do the brainy work. So, only brainy work would not survive. As you may know, there is a hypothesis and there is a belief that if you have more brain, you are more intelligent in a crude manner, but more brain with respect to what? So, they say that if you take number of animals and if you take those animals who have more brain mass in comparison to their body mass. So, you take the ratio of brain mass to the body mass and then you plot it on a graph paper. You have the brain mass versus, and you take the ratio of which animal has the most brain mass to body mass ratio. Then human beings are very on the top of the scale. Our brain mass in comparison to our body mass is extremely high in comparison to cats or dogs or monkeys and elephants or other animals. Their brain mass in comparison to their body mass is much less. But more than human being, there is one more animal which has more brain mass in comparison to their body mass, and that animal is dolphin. Dolphin has more brain mass in comparison to their body mass, but since they do not have hands, they cannot do many of the things which we human beings can do. They are extremely creative. Dolphins are extremely creative. They can do lot of exercises, lot of things within the sea, but since they are living in the sea, they are not able to exploit the nature the way we are able to do. And we did not progress only by brain, we also progress due to the hard work which the hands has done. So, only the right hemisphere will not be sufficient, it should also be supplemented with the left hemisphere. Second other misconcept which we are going to talk about is art, science and creativity. It is a misconcept to assume that artists have the creative things. Artists have to do new things. Artists have to do new things, but they also should limit their creativity to certain things which we call as style. Suppose there is a very creative architect. Any creative architect will also have a style. If he always kept on doing things in a totally distinguished manner, in totally innovative manner, then one piece of his work will not have any correlation with another piece of his work, and if he did not have the something called style, then you would not be able to correlate anything from anything else. Suppose a music composer, you listen to the old film songs, when you listen to many songs, and if you keep tab on who was the music director, who was the singer and who was the lyricist, then you always develop a pattern. You can recognize that this lyric belong to this person. This must be the poet, because this poet has a specific style. So, even though each of his song is new, you can recognize something which is as unique as the signature, as unique as the handwriting, which you can identify with the poet, or for that matter singer, or for that matter the music director. A music director will have a style, and he has to limit himself to that particular style, because when a movie producer wants a music for his movie and he signs a specific music director, he knows that this is what to expect. If everybody were creative without limit or without style, then you would not know what to expect. When you see a movie by Satyajit Ray, you assume, you know that this is something I am going to get. Satyajit Ray gives a impression on you that this is kind of movie which I am going to expect. You do not expect Sholay from Satyajit Ray, and vice versa. So, somebody who is artistic also has a style, and this style limits his creativity. He cannot do something which is more than, or which goes beyond his style. There is a misconception that science is analytical, that science is more to do with analysis and it is not creative, and artists are only creative, they do not have to do more on the analysis. But the reality is that artists also need to be analytical and scientists also need to be creative. We have seen in the last lecture that when you do science, you also have to have hypotheses, and those hypotheses are the work of creative things in this thing. Once you have the hypothesis, you do all the dirty work, all the handwork, all the hard work in order to prove or disprove that particular hypothesis. So, there is a component of creativity in science just as there is a component of analysis in art. There is another misconception which says that artists can teach art in the best manner, or if you want to teach creativity, you should hire the artists which are highly creative. The reality is that it would be like saying that somebody who is best designer of the car, who can make the best fastest moving car, would be the person who would be able to drive those fast cars in a race, or a person who is the best person or the fastest person will also be able to teach how to be a race driver. Teaching and practice are totally or maybe totally independent. Best of the cricket coaches are not the best of the cricket players, and vice versa. So, you may be able to do things in the best manner, but you may not have the knack of understanding, because certain processes are inherent, they are internal to you. You do it anyway, but you do not know exactly what you have done, which has made your work an exceptional work. And even if you know this, you may not be able to communicate this feeling, what you have done that made you a successful player. For example, suppose some person, some cricketer is good at hitting sixes. If you ask him, write a paragraph, write a book, or write something, how you hit the six every time, then he may not be able to, he may not know exactly, because every ball was a new ball, every time his experience was a new experience. So, we may not be able to correlate what exactly did he do in order to do those things. Some of the things which he will say may be already known to you, that you should keep an eye on the ball, you should know what kind of runner this person is, how to take the run up, how the keep an eye on the ball and see what kind of grip he is having, the bowler is going to have, and what kind of ball to expect, whether it is swinging in the air, whether it is spinning, whether it is a left leg break, right break, and things like that, and then move your bat accordingly. This is something which everybody knows, but he will not be able to teach it through a book or through his coaching. So, knowing what works and explaining how it works may be totally different things. Some mediocre people do a good job as a cricket coach. There is a misconception on release. What is release? Is that you lift the inhibition, you lift the shyness, that is called as the release. That in order to be creative, you have to be released, in the sense that you should not have the burden on your mind, you should not have the burden on your head or heart, you should be free to express yourself. And if you are free to express yourself, then only you will be creative. We understand there is a importance of opening up in order to be creative. If you are suppressing yourself, you are under the pressure, you are afraid, then you may not be able to do a good job as a creative person. So, first step is to have the release, but release itself will not make you creative. If you are under pressure, you will not be able to be creative. If the pressure is off, then you are more likely to be creative, but that itself is not sufficient to make you creative. You have to move one step ahead, you have to move further ahead in order to be creative, and that is something which we call as the provocation. That how to, when we think and when we will learn the art of or the science of lateral thinking, then we will learn about this concept of provocation, that the new idea should come. If the new idea has to come, if you have to think in an unusual manner, first thing you have to let go is your inhibition, first thing you have to let go is your shyness. But once you have moved away from your shyness, that itself would not make you creative. You have to do certain systematic things. For example, something which may occur by chance. You are thinking about some solution and some dream comes to you, and when you reflect on the dream, then the solution may become obvious to you. For example, in chemistry or in there was a inventor who was trying to invent the sewing machine, the silai machine, sewing machine, and he was not able to understand how the thread will go in the how the thread will go in the needle, because the conventional needle has the thread, the eye at the end. So, he was not able to work, that idea was not working, because he was not able to think about new things. He was getting stuck, he was not able to invent that sewing machine. He had a dream in which he saw that there were some tribe people who had captured him and who were trying to threaten him, who are trying to kill him, and they had the mace, the bhala, those things where there is a sharp thing, something like a arrow, and at the end of the arrow there were some holes. So, when he woke up and he thought about the dream which he had, and he remembered a needle, or this idea gave rise to a needle which has the eye very close to the edge of the needle. So, that made him work, that idea inspired him. He thought that immediately he saw a solution, and that solution led to the sewing machine, silai machine, which we now see, in which there is a eye right in the tip of the needle. So, such provocation may come by chance. So, releasing itself is not sufficient, you have to do certain things further. Then creativity and intelligence, whether they are related or not related. When they did the study of IQ and CQ, that they developed some scale to measure the creativity, and that scale, suppose we call it as the CQ or the creative quotient. Then till certain extent the CQ and IQ, they were proportionate. Somebody who is having more creative is also having more intelligence, but afterwards there was no correlation, the correlation stopped. Why did that happen? If you are more intelligent, if you are scoring more and more, making you intelligent, if you are more intelligent, you immediately see, or you get a knack of seeing what works and what does not work, what will work and what will not work. And that idea, that knowledge that this thing is not going to work, that inhibits you, that stops you from being creative. Suppose I ask you some question, and suppose you are less intelligent, you will keep on giving answers. A person who is very young, a kid, a child, he will give all kind of answer. If he is totally free, if he is very used to this kind of thing, he will keep on generating newer and newer ideas. And since he is generating newer and newer ideas, his CQ will be high. Once the child becomes more intelligent, he knows things, he will immediately think, no, this will be a stupid idea, this idea is not going to work. So, he will not explore those ideas, he will not tell those ideas, he will not mention those ideas which he thinks is not going to work. Therefore, the correlation between CQ and IQ drops after a certain point. So, an intelligent person may not score in the CQ because he suppresses those ideas which he thinks is not going to work. An intelligent person may not be a creative thinker. Once if he keeps on thinking in a particular stereotyped manner, and he knows this is something which has been rewarding him all the time, and new things do not reward him more of the time, then he will try not to be creative, he will try not to look for solutions in a creative manner. And creativity is an independent skill. It is something which you can, irrespective of the intelligence level, you can be creative or not creative. So, let us assume, or let us see it this way, that creativity and analysis, you may treat them as an independent thing. At time you have to be creative, at time you have to be analytic, at time you have to be intelligent, at time you have to be creative. So, if you have that kind of an approach, you will be able to do a good job. Now that we have so far we have been exploring various misconceptions in creativity. Now let us see the sources of creativity. Where from the creativity comes? We have seen that a very important ingredient in creativity is unusualness. Value is something which we already know that everybody wants to have more and more value. To bring new things into life is something which we also know. It is something which we take it for granted. But to do things which are unusual, that is where the crux of the matter lies. Where from this unusualness is going to come? One source of such unusualness is the innocence. If you do not know something, you will, whatever will the spur of the moment, whatever will it lead to, you will say it that way. So, innocence, lack of experience, lack of knowledge, that is likely to generate more and more ideas. If you are free from the burden of experience, you will think you can create new ideas. Many a times what happens that the children are known to be creative, because they have not formed very rigid patterns. With the experience, we keep on forming patterns and use them, and those patterns become more and more rigid. They become more and more there are more and more burden, there are more and more inertia into this. You are not able to change those patterns. You will not be able to challenge those patterns, because those patterns have rewarded you all the time. So, you will be reluctant to change those patterns. And since a child or an innocent person or a person who did not have experience, since he does not have this burden, he will be more likely to create new ideas. There is an example given in the book, that of hot air balloon, that some people developed the hot air balloon. That hot air balloon, that is when you have some fire or something like that, then there is you generate the fire, generates the heat, and that heat, it heats up the air molecules, and the air molecules become lighter, because hot things are lighter. So, those lighter things, there is the heavier things goes down, and the lighter particles, they go up, and if you enclose them in some sort of a balloon or some sort of a cloth or something like that, then those hot air particles, they will enclose those things, and they will have a push. They will try to move ahead, and they will take you or take this balloon along with it. So, there some people who did not have any experience, they just found that this thing works, and they developed the hot air balloon. Now, the king of the country, he immediately recognized that there is a lot of potential in the military sense. If you are up in the air, you can go to various forts, because suppose you want to win a fort, you have to climb it, or you have some trenches and you have to, but if you can do it from up, then there is a more value. You can easily conquer those forts. So, he asked his scientist to replicate it. Now, the scientist did not think about the same idea. He thought that lighter than air, there are some particles which are lighter than air, like helium or hydrogen. So, he used hydrogen instead of air, and that worked. So, an expert does things in a different manner, an innocent person does it in a different manner. So, we have seen that sometimes the innocent people can think of those things which an expert person does not think. An expert person thinks about the hydrogen atom to be used for the balloon which will take you up, whereas a innocent person could use the idea of hot air, which was supposed to be a more advanced idea. Similarly, there was a concept or there was a problem of, in some of the offices what happens, there is a during weekend no person would like to work, because during the weekend you have the holidays, everybody has the holiday, so everybody wants to take leave and wants to enjoy life with their family. But there may be some cases or some industry where round the clock, all 7 days of the week, there is a requirement of work to be done. Now, this is a problem, how to make people work during weekends, during Saturdays and Sundays. So, they asked this question to people, to students, that what should be done. So, the students came up with the idea that why not recruit new set of people who will be working only during the weekends. So, earlier people thought that this may not be a good idea, but when they really advertised it, then the people who could not get chance as a first choice, and those people who were unemployed, they could work only also after the weekdays and during the weekends. So, there is a trade off between originality and the reinvention of the wheel. If we think too much about the innocence, then we may be reinventing things. Suppose you lead the creativity only to the innocent people, non-expert people, then they will be coming up with ideas which were already there. So, we should be having a trade-off between innocence and experience. Other source of creativity is experience, totally different than our previous exercise. When you have experience, you know what works and what doesn't work. This leads to some ideas which have worked. So, you just change little bit here and there, and this you create a new thing which is not exactly a novel idea, which is a sort of a run of the mill idea, but it will work, it will have values. For example, suppose a movie works. A movie is a great commercial success. What people do is they make sequel, they make part 2, part 3, part 4. If part 1 has worked, why not part 2 will work? So, they have the guarantee of success, they can avoid risk. So, the idea is copy what works, whatever works you just copy it, and you limit your creativity to a certain extent, and you keep on making newer and newer sequence. The style which we talked about, that also is an example of experience working as the source of inspiration. Another source of inspiration is motivation. Motivated people try to seek solutions, try to seek multiple solutions. They are not satisfied with the first solution which comes in their mind. Suppose you have a number of people, some of them are motivated, some of them are not motivated, and you give them some task. Those people who are not motivated, they will find some solution and they will say, okay, I have found the solution, and they will wind up and they will enjoy the life, and because they are not motivated, they are not passionate about the work. But those people who are motivated, what they will do is, even if they have found the solution, they will try to seek several other solutions, and they will have the curiosity to find the explanation why this thing has worked, and that will make them slow perhaps, but they will, over a long run of time, they will amass more experience, they will amass more expertise, more importance and more versatility into them, and they focus on things which we take for granted. So, something which just passes our attention, those people who are motivated, they also try to see those things in light and try to inspire themselves as to whether this is going to lead to some solutions to them or not. Another source is called tuned judgment. So, if you compare a photographer and a painter, what a painter does, he imagines things and with all inspiration and all his technique and all his material there, he paints a scene. What a photographer does, he is armed with a camera, maybe some lights, he sees things around, whenever he is inspired or he sees some promising thing, that this scene is something which is of importance, some sunset or some bird moving or some such, some one animal feeding its kid, things like that. He sees it and he goes for a right angle, he goes for the right light condition and he shoots it, he photographs it, and with this technique he creates a work of art. Based on that, we come to a concept of tuned judgment. What this person has done, he has picked up a potential idea, an idea which has some promise, an idea which can be of great value in future. He has picked up the idea in an early stage and he develops those ideas. He uses his judgment on the feasibility of his idea. The idea may not be original one, it may not be original to him. So, people may criticize that this is somebody else's idea, you have only advocated it. But we should also give importance to working of the ideas and not only the originality of the ideas. So, you may not be the originator of the idea, and since you are not the originator of the idea, you may have the criticism, and this will take away the glamour or the ego satisfaction that you have done it, I have done it. This ego satisfaction may be limited, but even then we should, or the society should also reward those people who not only generate new ideas, but also develop ideas generated by other people. It may be very useful, because ideas which may have otherwise gone in drain, this person has used that idea and he has built it and it is now useful. So, judging potential itself is the creative art, creative act. Now, a number of sources which may have something common, for example, chances, accidents, mistakes and accidents. This is something which has not been done by chance or by deliberate attempts by the inventor or by the practitioner. Chances come all the time. So, things keep on happening in background and a creator has the eye to see the potential in that particular area. For example, penicillin was discovered by chance. It was discovered that some molds, they kill the bacteria. So, how those bacteria killing organs or those molecules could be generated, that was the invention, or that was something which gave a lot of value. Lot of diseases could be treated with antibiotics like penicillin. Penicillin gave rise to a new set of field in the new set of area in the field of medicine. So, the discovery of penicillin was out of chance. Sometimes mistakes also give rise to new invention. For example, somebody gave a lighter dose to a cow, and since the dose was lighter, the cow developed the defensive mechanism and that treated the chicken pox, and this concept was taken up by Lew Pasteur and he developed vaccines, and nowadays we have a lot of vaccines for many of the viral problems. It was by mistake that Columbus discovered the new world. discovery by Columbus was due to mistake. If he had the right information, he might not have ventured into it, because the distance between the Americas and the Europe is extremely large. If he knew that this distance is so large, maybe he would not have taken this exercise. Since he did not know, therefore, by mistake he took the route which led him to the discovery of Americas. Then some madness is also the source of creativity. Madness are the ideas which are contrary to the established practice. Established practice, established belief was that Earth is in the center of the universe. Some people who discovered, who hypothesized that it is Sun which is at the center of the universe, it was a mad concept. People took that as a mad idea because it was contrary to the established belief. Later on, this belief is taken as the right belief, and because it solves many of our scientific problems, therefore, this belief has been established. But at that time, it was a mad idea. These mad ideas take you, or all these things, they take you away from the reasonableness, and therefore, they create the unusual thing. In order to be creative, you have to be unusual, and when you are mad, you have the creative insight, but that creative insight should be valuable, then only the madness can be rewarded. So, what we do is we pay attention to what did not work as expected and analyze. When we do things and things happen in a different manner than expected, then you find out why it happened that way, why the expected result did not come up, and analyze those things, and then this leads to the discovery of new things. It is also mentioned in the book that there are certain cultures which encourage or which are tolerant to the whimsical people. For example, the Britain was extremely tolerant to all kind of whimsical ideas and whimsical people. Many of the people who revolutionized the world and who were highly criticized by all the world, they took shelter in United Kingdom or Britain, and they got stable over there. For example, Karl Marx, he was extremely criticized by all the Europe, and every country expelled him. He took shelter in Britain, and he was there. It was there he lived to the rest of his life. So, such cultures which encourage whimsical person, they have more share in the inventions. Most of the inventions have taken place in Britain because the society was encouraging, or it was tolerant to the whimsical people. That was still a certain time when the invention could take place with one person or a single person. These days, most of the inventions or most of the new discoveries, it requires a lot of teamwork. So, teamwork is required, and therefore, society which is tolerant to new idea and which can encourage the teamwork in building up of the new ideas or new concept would be the one which will be contributing most to the creative inventions. Other sources of creativity, style, we have already talked about it, that, and what an artist does, he creates a template. Out of his many creations, he has a pattern in which he wants to be stable, in which he wants to be remembered as, that I should be remembered with a person who has such set of attributes, and therefore, he creates a template and he works according to those templates. Once the template is developed out of his subconscious mind, then creativity becomes spontaneous, or creativity becomes a natural factory like things. Just like in factory we keep on producing things, he keeps on producing new ideas by changing one variable here and one variable there, within that framework he develops the new ideas. So, he knows that he can generate new idea. Release is also one source of creativity. Release is lack of inhibition, and that lack of inhibition, even though it is not sufficient, it may act as a source of creativity. The last source of creativity we are talking about is a mechanical kind of thing. Suppose we can develop a routine, suppose we can develop a program, suppose we can develop a process that do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and you will be creative. Then you will not be shy to, or you will not think creativity as something very great or very disturbing. Suppose you know how to cook a bread, how to cook a particular recipe, you have the recipe, then it will not be a burden on you to do something like that, to prepare a dish, because you know how to prepare that dish. So, if we can prepare a recipe for creativity, that recipe is called as the lateral thinking techniques. Not everything is lateral thinking, not everything creative is lateral thinking, but creativity, it could be a subset of, or lateral thinking could be a subset of creative thinking. So, once that drill is there, once that recipe is there, that would be a source of creativity, because you can have a drill on how to be productive and creative. Let us very quickly or very briefly see what lateral thinking is. There is a whole chapter on lateral thinking in the book, but I am going to summarize it. Lateral thinking is to seek to solve by apparently illogical ways. When you try to solve a problem using some techniques which look to be illogical, then what you have done is you are trying to solve the problem using lateral thinking, or the kind of thinking which goes in this exercise is called lateral thinking. Why it is called lateral? Suppose you are drilling a well, you keep on drilling down and down and down. Suppose you do not get the output, you stop. Drilling more down may not be able to be a productive idea. But suppose you drill at another point and you drill down, this is kind of lateral thinking you have done. You are not analyzing the idea again and deeper and deeper and deeper, but you are saying, let me think of a new place to drill, let me think about a new way of looking at the problem, let me be creative, let me be novel, let me be new. And when you think that way, then you are using the lateral thinking. Lateral means sideways. It is a systematic technique to change the perception or the concept and to find a new one. And it explores the multiple possibilities rather than a single possibility. So, these are some of the attributes of lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is one of the ways to achieve critical thinking or to be creative. As I said, lateral thinking is part of being creative. It is not the only technique, it is not the only way in which you can be creative, but it is one of the way to be creative. Perception and processes. We are programmed to recognize and use pattern. That is what we had seen in our first lecture, that our brain is designed to recognize patterns and to use pattern. Creativity is a break to it. Since you are trying to do things in an unusual manner, you are breaking it. We see the world not as it is, but as we perceive it to be. For example, suppose I am given a lens. Suppose a lens is fitted on my eyes, which makes me see everything in the upwards down. Okay? Then I will see you upside down. Your feet will be up and your head would be down there. Okay, you would look to me upside down. So, are you upside down? No, you are not upside down. Your feet is not up and your head is not down, but I see it that way. What will happen? Suppose people are fitted with such kind of lenses, there will be some difficulty in the beginning, but later on they will be used to it, they will adapt to it. But it is not the truth that feet is at the top and head is at the down, but you see it that way. So, it is the perception that makes us aware of the world. So, world is not as it is, but it is how it looks to us. There is a limit to perception, and this is where the creativity may come. For example, is given an example of a person, a small kid, 4 or 5 years old. In Australia, they say that the $1 coin is more heavier, more bigger in comparison to $2 coin. So, a $1 coin is bigger and $2 coin is a smaller one. Now, this kid is offered a choice that in my hand, one hand I have a $1 coin, other hand I have a smaller $2 coin. Which one? You can choose one of them and you can retain the coin, you can keep it. This is the offer given to this kid. What he did was he took the bigger one, the $1 coin, he took it. So, the person was amused, he replicated, he did it once again. Next time again he chose the $1 coin. Then he kept on, it became a demo piece. Every time, every day, once or twice he was given the offer that you can have this thing, you can keep the coin. Now, one person was observing all these things. He told this kid that see, this whatever you are doing is wrong. You should have opted for the smaller $2 coin, because $2 is more more precious, more value than the $1 one. With $1 you can purchase one thing, with $2 you can purchase two things. So, whatever your choices was wrong. Now, the kid replies, I know all these things all the time. I know this, that choosing $1 is less value and $2 is more value. But suppose I had given the right choice in the first place, he would not have experimented with me and I would not have earned so much money. I would have only earned $2. Now, I have earned $7. By 7 exercises, I have earned $7. So, sometimes, as I said, world is not what it is, but it is how you perceive it. So, he perceived an opportunity that if I look to be a stupid person, they will keep on making a fool out of me and I will be making more and more money. So, this is an example of the perception. Another example, maybe there is a joke in which a recruit is transferred to a new commander. The new commander rings up the old commanders and he says, tell me about this new person which has come to me. Does he have any bad habits or anything like that? He said, no, everything is good about him. Only thing is that is a bad habit of betting, that he keeps on betting on very unusual things and he always wins. So, he said, okay, good that you told me, I will be careful. So, he calls for that recruit, that new person, new soldier. The new soldier comes to him and he asks him, the commander asks him a few questions here and there, and the new soldier was looking very carefully to his face. He said, why you are looking at me, my face so carefully? He said that, no, I have an hitch that your moustache is nakli, it is not right, it is not real, you just paint something, it is something is wrong about your moustache. He said, no, it is real, it is genuine. No, I cannot believe it, I feel that it is it is fake. So he said, no, you can test it. So he tries to remove the moustache, and obviously he cannot remove the moustache. He says, oh, sorry. So before that he had taken a bet of 100 rupees. He said, no, I can bet you 100 rupees that your moustache is nakli. And since it did not turn, he gives him 100 rupees. The soldier gives the commander 100 rupees, and the commander is very happy because he was told that he always wins the bet. So he rings the old commander that I have won the bet. Oh, he said, no, he had betted me that I will, on my first day itself, I will touch his moustache. I will try to, remove his moustache. So he had given 500 rupees bet, and on the net he has the profit of 400 rupees. So this is how things work. So sometimes the mad or stupid options may not be that stupid as they look like, and this is where the creativity is, to do things in an unusual manner. One more example is given, is that of P, M and I, plus, minus and interesting. This is the kind of technique which he used in teaching creativity to the classroom people. So in the classroom, an option was given, an hypothesis was given, or a scenario was painted, and then the students were asked to think the pluses, to think about the minuses, and to think about the interesting things. What will happen if you are given 1 rupee for attending each of your lecture? Suppose you are given, your parents give you 1 rupees note or 10 rupees note for every lecture which you attend, or every time you go to the school. What would happen? So the pluses said that no, there would be more attendance, and then people would be attending more and more people would be attending, and things like that. The people will not be debugging. Then there was a minus. On the minus side, so a lot of people said yes, this is a good idea. This is a good idea. But then when they thought even deeper, and then they thought from other angles, then they thought that where from the money is going to come from. So if the parents are giving more money for attending the lectures, that means there would be fewer and fewer gifts. They would be spending much less money on entertainment or gifts or something like that. So that is a minus side. So this is how you can always think from multiple angles at the situation and see what is plus, what is minus, and what is interesting. I leave it to you. You can go through that exercise once again and look deeper into it. Now, logic of perception. There are two kinds of logic. One is the logic of the perception, and there is a logic, hard logic, the way we see it, the Boolean algebra, or the kind of logic which we see in the real life, in the science. So that logic is a hard logic. Something is either true or it is false. It cannot be either true, neither true nor false, or something like that. So this is something like a rock, which is true, which is hard to break, which cannot be, which is just one way. Logic of perception is that similar to the water. There is some uncertainty. Whenever we think in a creative manner, whenever we try to think in an unusual manner, it is not guaranteed that you are going to get some result. It is not guaranteed that the solution which you are trying to solve, which you are trying to find, is definitely going to be there. It may be you might have got jammed up, and thinking in a new manner, thinking using the lateral thinking problems may give you some solutions, but it is not guaranteed. So it is something like water. Just as rock has some concrete shape, but water doesn't have a concrete or very defined shape. So similarly, they call it as a water logic. We fear the uncertainty, hence we do not like to teach the logic of uncertainty. That is the reason. Suppose I give you some problems about which I do not have the simple solution in my mind, or suppose I encourage you to think in a very creative manner, and suppose I give you a problem in mathematics, and I say that no, this is how the solution is given in the book, try to find new kinds of solutions, try to find alternate ways of proving it. Then neither are you certain nor am I certain. Therefore, I will be discouraged to teach mathematics in this particular manner. In our classroom settings, we try to have we try to have students to copy or to remember things as they are. We are afraid of, or we do not want the student to think in a creative manner. For example, most of our questions in an examination are of knowledge kind of thing, where you can find the solution in the book as it is, and what you do is, without remembering, or without, most of the people what they do is, without understanding, they just mug it up and they just reproduce it as it is in the question paper, and the person who is checking the question paper, he is looking for certain words, he finds it, he gives marks. If he does not find the words in the specific sequence, he does not give the marks. So, he wants him to remember the sequence, the answer in the specific sequence, without bothering to know whether the person has really understood. These days what they are trying to say is that you ask or you encourage people to paraphrase the concept in their own manner, in their own words, in their own set of experiences. But when such multiple answers would come to the examiner, and he has to suppose check 60 odd question papers, and suppose that all the questions are right in the true sense of the word, every time he sees the answer, everybody's answer would be written in a different manner. Somebody may have written in a village language, somebody may have written in a urban language, somebody may have written in a poetic language, somebody might have written in a totally grammatically incorrect manner, but their essence may be correct. So, he will have more and more time, he will have to spend more and more time to analyze, to understand what these people have understand, or what these people are trying to communicate. So, it becomes a hard job on the part of the teacher, it becomes a hard job on the part of the educational system, and that is why we do not wish to teach the art of logic, or the art of uncertainty, or the art of water logic. And that these may be the reason we are not teaching logic, or we are not teaching creativity in our educational scenario. In summary, we have seen that it is a misconception that the creativity cannot be taught. It is a misconception that creativity comes from the rebels. We have gone into the details about conformists and rebels, and what would happen if the two have to swap their places. It is a misconception that the artists are the best people to teach creativity. We have given sources of creativity. The sources are innocence, experience, tuned judgment, chance, mistakes, release, lateral thinking, and style. Lastly, we had seen about the logic of perception. We had also talked about the water logic. In the next lecture, we are going to learn about the tools of lateral thinking. Till then, goodbye.